I just love mornings in the garden, especially this time of year. Everything just looks so lush and full, and I'm really proud of my garden. But lest you think it's all been perfect, I assure you it hasn't been. Just like every season, I've made some bad decisions and I've had to recalibrate after some poor weather and pests. And in it all, I'm embracing and learning whatever I can. There was a companion planting combination that I had such high hopes for, but it didn't work out. And then I ended up planting my tomatoes and peppers too early, and several other things that didn't work out like I had planned. But I'm going to share those with you today, and I'm hoping that you can take my lessons and learn from them just like I am. So let's start off over here with my cauliflower bed. This is my mature cauliflower bed, and I had such high hopes that it would look a lot different than it does right now. Now, I am harvesting my early snowball cauliflower right now, which has been amazing. And I am waiting on this purple cauliflower right now to start producing heads. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I know that the purple cauliflower has a longer days to maturity, but I've been harvesting the early snowball for several weeks. And it's starting to get hot. I just don't know that I'm gonna get the purple one this year. So that may end up being a failure as well, but we'll see. I'm hanging on just in case. But like I said, at least with the early snowball cauliflower, I'm actually really pleased with the harvest. But I made a big effort to make this bed in general look a lot more beautiful than it is. Specifically, I tried to plant a patchwork of purple and white alyssum to serve as a beautiful living mulch beneath the purple and the white cauliflower. But as it turned out, I ended up planting the alyssum transplants too late. By the time they were ready and they were large enough to transplant, my cauliflower was already pretty mid-sized. And what that meant is that the alyssum, which is normally pretty tolerant of different growing conditions, was completely shaded. And then the cauliflower plants grew so large, there was no hope for the alyssum to expand under the cauliflower like I had hoped. Some of it's still living. We'll see now that it's been harvested if it'll come out and at least grow through the summer, but alyssum doesn't love the heat, so I may have to give up on that hope altogether. Now, of course, this was more of a visual failure on my end, but I have to wonder if it might have been helpful with the onslaught of cabbage worms this season, which brings me to my next frustration. There's one right there. Now, I know if you listen to my podcast or you're a student of my garden planning course, Dream to Garden, you know how I preach about how essential insect netting is to protect brassicas like cauliflower, cabbage, and broccoli from the cabbage worm. But this year, I didn't cover any of my cauliflower or my broccoli or my cabbage, but there's actually a reason. Last spring, I noticed that the cabbage moth didn't seem to arrive until after I had harvested most of these crops. I had one cauliflower planting that I didn't harvest until June, and it never got touched. Also, especially with broccoli and cauliflower, you can see how large these plants were. I found that insect netting was a little bit more of a pain because these plants get so tall. So in order to cover this well, it requires taller hoops and bigger netting to be able to span the whole bed, because those cabbage moths can get into any little gap that you have. So this year I decided to skip it for the spring, but I learned, and I'm learning, as you just saw, that was a terrible idea. I mean, you can see these leaves have just been demolished. Oh, there's another one. The cabbage worm started out more so on my white cauliflower. But interestingly, until I started harvesting the white cauliflower, they're completely gone from this bed now. They did not bother the purple cauliflower right next to them, which I thought was interesting. And also, the only cabbage that they attacked initially, especially when I still had the white cauliflower here, was the ones that were in my green stalk and not the ones in my raised bed. That makes me wonder if the companions that I had really did play a role in keeping them at bay, because my cabbage and my raised beds were near onions, and my broccoli even, it didn't have the cabbage worms this year either. It was within a bed of crimson clover. So everything else had companions except for what was in my green stalk and here in the cauliflower bed, which, like I said, I intended it to be alyssum, didn't work out. But I also wonder if it was a function of the companions, or a lot of people have told me on Instagram that when they plant cauliflower, it almost serves as a trap crop, as in the cabbage worms prefer the cauliflower over everything else, which I think that makes a lot of sense. Now next year, if I want to try this patchwork of cauliflower and alyssum again, first of all, I know that I'll need to plant the alyssum earlier. And it will probably be wise to cover with insect netting, especially the cauliflower. However, if I just cover the cauliflower bed, I figure the cabbage moth will go to the next best thing. Just like it did after I harvested this white cauliflower. Now the cabbage worm is on all my cabbages, which it wasn't before. So frustrating. This is just an example where you know what to do and you don't always do it, and then you pay the price. Next, let's go to the opposite side of the kitchen garden with my carrots. This next setback you probably wouldn't even notice unless I told you, and that's what's going on with my carrots. Getting carrot seeds to germinate is usually the most challenging part of growing carrots, but I know that keeping the soil irrigated is the most important part. Still, germination was a bit spotty, probably due to some really cold weather early on. But I also noticed that my compost had a bit more bark content in it than it usually does, which could have also inhibited the roots from establishing. But I think the bigger culprit was actually roly-polies. They love to break down organic materials, which means I am finding them more and more when I use partially broken down compost, especially any that has bark or shredded leaves. But by the time I realize that there's actually a problem, the damage has already been done. They've already eaten the little sprouts down to the nubs where the carrots won't recover. I did apply some diatomaceous earth, which saved a lot of them, which is why you see a lot of carrots here. But instead of having 16 per square, I'm looking at harvesting about half to 3/4 depending on the square. When I start to plant again in August, I know I have to be even more intentional because I lost my entire fall carrot harvest last year and most of it the year before, mostly due to roly-polies and even cutworms. After having this happen multiple times, I know I need a different plan, and my plan this year, especially in the fall, and if that works, hopefully in the spring, my plan is to sprinkle a light layer of potting mix on top of the soil so that the carrot can root quickly. And also I want to proactively add diatomaceous earth to repel the insects. I will have to apply it regularly since water washes it away, and I'll be watering daily. But at this point, that's really all I know to do. I may go back to growing some in my green stock as well. And if you have any ideas, please share this in the comments. Carrots are one of my favorite things to grow, and once I got the germination problem taken care of, I really felt like I was over the bigger hump, but now dealing with pests here has become another challenge. Oh, there's my first squash. That snuck up on me. Oh, these beets are so beautiful. I love beets. I love them pickled, but they're also such beautiful plants. And beets are a crop that I especially depend on in the spring. And it's admittedly a selfish crop because I'm the only one in my family who eats them. But as I said, I love pickled beets and I use them on my daily salads. This year, I had planned to grow hundreds of beets because I ran out of pickled beets in March this year, and I really want them year-round. But even after giving them a head start by sprouting them in the greenhouse and then painfully planting each little seedling one by one, I lost almost all of them to that late March 19-degree night that wiped out my blueberries. You may remember seeing that video. We'll link it in the description in case you haven't yet. It was kind of a sad situation. I'm still trying to get past that. But frustrated though and undeterred with my beets because I knew, unlike blueberries, I could still get another harvest, I planted again. This time I directly sowed the seeds in the bed, not only this one, but also in my large garden as well. Now the ones that are here in these raised beds are looking great, but this right here, I have this and then I have another side that is the same, but that's just not enough for the amount of pickled beets that I want. So I mentioned I planted quite a few back in my large garden's raised bed. But at the moment, we are in the middle of some infrastructure projects and the rabbits are definitely taking their pick of those beets. I'm optimistically hoping that the rabbits are just like thinning them because at this point I am tired of fighting for them, to be honest. Do you ever get that way? I've worked so hard on these beets. I had a lot of them that germinated, and thinning them out to the proper spacing has just been something that hasn't made my to-do list. And sometimes I just have to do the best I can with what I have. Still, with every plant that makes it another day, I'm hoping for the best, and in the meantime, I'm just enjoying the beauty of what I have here. These are just a couple of my tomato plants that I'm growing out here in the kitchen garden. I have 2 more that are growing up my arch trellis that I shared with you about a couple weeks ago. And then I also have a whole 4 by 20 raised bed in my big garden that I'm growing paste tomatoes in for canning this year. Haven't done that in a couple of years. I'm excited about that. It's gonna be a labor of love, but I also have a lot of peppers growing. I'll be sharing with you more about that in next week's video, talking about peppers and companions because I have so many peppers. I've got quite a few companions that are going with them. But that brings me to my next failure, which was even though these tomato plants are doing fine and so are the peppers, it wasn't a guarantee because I learned a pretty big lesson with tomatoes and peppers of all things. I've been gardening for over 13 years and I'm still learning. And the biggest lesson for me so far was that I planted my tomatoes and peppers too early indoors. The thing that makes me mad is that I knew better. Each year, I seem to have the same problem. These plants are ready for the garden before the weather is. Our average last frost date is April 8th, and planting in late February is a pretty typical suggestion. But I have noticed that this is way too early for me. And you may wonder why. The reason is because I move my indoor planted tomatoes and peppers into my greenhouse usually about mid-March. And once I do this, they grow so much faster than if they had stayed under grow lights. But when late February rolled around, everyone around me, including gardeners I trust, they started planting. So I gave in, part to peer pressure and part to get here already spring mindset. You may be able to relate to that. And once I planted them, they did what they always do. Once I got them into the greenhouse, they grew so fast and they were more than ready to be in the garden when our average last frost date came. But around April 8th, our nighttime temperatures were still dipping into the 40s and even into the upper 30s. And this year I had another challenge to work around. I went to Disney during that same week. You can check out the interviews we did with them, with the experts at the International Flower and Garden Festival on this channel. But I worried that if I didn't plant these plants before I left for Disney, then they would suffer from being in their pots and being in the warm greenhouse too long. Maybe I worried for nothing because so far all these tomatoes and even the peppers are actually doing really well, even though they experience the upper 30s. And especially with the peppers, I do worry that production may be lessened per plant if they happen to be injured in the cold. Obviously, I can't tell that, but chilling injury is real and it may end up affecting the total yield. All that to say, I will be making a large note to self next year. Do not plant seeds indoors until March at the earliest. Now, if you don't use a greenhouse in this way, planting 6 to 8 weeks before your average last frost date is still a really good rule of thumb. But for me, because I'm utilizing the greenhouse and I'm seeing how much of a difference it makes in the pace of growth, I realized that planting in February gives them way too much time to be growing inside. Just another reminder that no matter how long you've been gardening, there's always something new to learn. Oh, a cardinal on my arch trellis. So right now I can see the sun's getting ready to crest over my house. You can already see the greenhouse is glowing. Such a beautiful morning. Thanks for spending it with me. I just wanted to share with you those 5 examples of what didn't go as planned, but I'm sure there will continue to be so many more throughout the season. And that's what keeps us on our toes, right? What about you? What hasn't gone as planned for you so far, and what did you learn? I would love to hear about it in the comments. And these lessons weren't the only ones I've learned already this year. I'll be talking about more of them, some just observations and some from some pretty good successes already. I'll be sharing those with you on the next episode of the Beginner's Garden podcast, which comes out on Tuesdays. That particular one will be episode number 473, so check that out either here on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.